Hi, I'm Jarek.
Hi, I'm Lorna.
We're going on a journey to discover the legacy of the American Legion
and how that history of the Legion is shaping the vision for our future.
Well, we have visited a ton of Legion posts, but I always like it when we can get out into the community.
Yes, and here we are at our local park.
A park, I'll race you to the slide.
Sounds good.
This is almost a little scary.
I know.
It's pretty easy to understand why the American Legion's founders wanted young people involved in their Americanism programs. All part of the process to impart knowledge, pride, discipline, and values to future generations.
But the American Legion's place in the lives of children and youth has another dimension: support and assistance for kids who face challenges beyond their control. When the veterans of World War I returned from Europe, they knew families would be broken.
Parents of the war came home changed, if they came home at all. Tens of thousands suffered from combat trauma. Many had been gassed and were blind. Others had lost limbs and were unable to return to work at family farms or factory jobs. Thousands of children across America were orphaned. Children with disabilities had limited help, and juvenile delinquency was a growing national concern.
Care for the children of veterans and those who fell fighting was without question an inherent purpose of the new American Legion. But the early American Legion also soon realized that support for all children facing difficulties was vital to the strength of the nation. That mission would become known as a square deal for every child. As early as 1919, American Legion posts were caring for needy children who had lost parents to death or disability caused by the war. At the first National Convention in Minneapolis, the topic of child welfare was addressed with a resolution that called on Legionnaires to search for the widows and orphans of the war dead and extend to them, quote, such care and assistance as may be within their power. Widows and orphans had no idea the ways in which that care and assistance would be delivered over the next century.
Hundreds of American Legion posts and auxiliary units quickly began to work on this mission, volunteering time and raising money to give every child a square deal. Before the organization was even a year old, the American Legion's Department of Kansas had adopted the Boys Industrial School of Topeka, a reformatory institution for kids who had gotten into trouble with the law. The Legion raised money for the school, helped operate it, and instilled discipline and patriotic values among the boys.
At the Fourth American Legion National Convention in 1922, a resolution was passed to study the feasibility of building and operating one national home for veterans' children who had been orphaned or were destitute. This was the beginning of the Legion's Child Welfare Committee. Also passed at that convention was a resolution for the American Legion to work closely with schools to establish physical education programs, a priority among wartime veterans who served alongside troops who were often in poor health or unfit. A year later, at the National Convention in San Francisco, the new American Legion Children's Welfare Committee delivered its first report and called upon posts and departments to establish their own committees to help kids in need at the state and local levels. In the event that children of veterans had to go into foster care, the American Legion resolved to, quote, effectively and carefully follow up such children and families and thus safeguard their welfare. The new Children's Welfare Committee was also authorized to seek funds for regional schools and institutions, rather than build one national American Legion home for orphans.
In 1924, newly elected National Commander James A. Drain undertook a major challenge: establish the Child Welfare Division of the American Legion. At the same time, he was trying to raise $5 million for a new American Legion Endowment Fund, which would provide resources for disabled veterans and children in need. One of Drain's first moves after seating the endowment was to hire Emma Pushner of St. Louis, a lawyer, trained social worker, and former director of the St. Louis Board of Children's Guardians. She developed the American Legion's Child Welfare Program, which remained a top priority for the organization long after World War I and well beyond the Great Depression.
Under Pushner, the American Legion established what would become known as the Whole Child Plan. The basic tenets were that every child deserved a home, health, education, character, and opportunity.
The National American Legion Child Welfare Program expanded at one point to add regional field offices in New England, New York, the Midwest, and the Rocky Mountains. Income from the initial $5 million raised in 1925 for the American Legion Endowment Fund was to be divided between veterans rehabilitation and children's welfare, an arrangement that continues today through the American Legion Veterans and Children's Foundation. The foundation, for instance, supports the Legion's temporary financial assistance program, which provides cash grants to needy military and veteran families with minor children at home.
A member of the American Legion Auxiliary and sister to two World War I combat veterans, the American Legion's Emma Pushner became a national leader in child welfare. She was an advisor for federal child care offices and agencies and a consultant to the White House. She became so respected that she appeared as herself in a 1944 radio airing of The Guiding Light, where she offered solutions about how best to deal with the rising problem of juvenile delinquency. In 1953, Dr. Garland D. Murphy of Arkansas, a World War II combat surgeon, donated to the American Legion mineral and oil interests on 10,000 acres in North Dakota and Montana. His one condition? That revenues from that property be used only to help children. Thus, in 1954, the American Legion Child Welfare Foundation was born. Today, the Child Welfare Foundation awards over $600,000 in grants each year to dozens of organizations that provide assistance for children facing challenges that range from bullying to cancer to autism and homelessness.
During the Gulf War of 1990 and 1991, the American Legion launched the Family Support Network to provide volunteer assistance to military families with minor children at home. During deployments, if a family needed childcare, lawn work, auto repairs, or other services, the American Legion would be there. The Family Support Network continues to provide those services today.
The American Legion in communities, states, the nation, and around the world awards millions of dollars of scholarships for students. These include college funds for Eagle Scouts, oratorical contest competitors, junior shooters, baseball players, and true to the founding mission of the Legion, children of men and women who lost their lives or became over 50% disabled during active duty military service after 9/11. 1 month after the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, the American Legion launched an effort that would later become the Legacy Scholarship Fund. Millions of dollars have been raised through American Legion efforts, including the annual Legacy Run of the Legion Riders, to help children who lost parents or whose parents became disabled during the War on Terror.
I really understand now how the American Legion strengthens our nation, one child at a time, through this founding mission.
The founders believed that every child needs a square deal, no matter their circumstances, and throughout the first century, the whole American Legion family has been providing just that, without hesitation.